and welcome to episode 4 of In the Doll's House.
This week, we're discussing the return to work following the period of paternity leave. We remember what it was like going back to work for the first time since our daughters arrived.
We talk about how we were able to balance the new life-changing routine to our regular working life and how we managed to stay relatively sane.
So grab a brew, sit back and relax, unless you're driving to work, and come and have a little play with us in the Doll's House.
So Chris, last week when we had our little update, you were saying that you'd been to Smith's Toys and you'd got your lovely exchange rate with your dummies. Mm-hmm. How's that been going? Has your little lady been playing with all those toys?
Not really. Well, we've all had to go with the remote control. The remote control car is cool because it's got like loads of wheels everywhere, so it just flies all over the place. And I can't remember what else we got, to be honest with you. But yeah, the remote controls had a bit of a play around, but I don't think the little cat toy that I think that's in a cupboard somewhere will be there for the rest of the time. It's like, Chinese 5 Spice in your cupboard in your kitchen, it just stays there. I think it's going to be the same for this little toy. It'll just disappear and then one day we'll throw it away. But on the dummy front, nice. Like, she's been amazing actually. We've been like really lucky with it. We thought the transition might take a couple of nights, but literally from that Saturday night she's been sleeping like straight through. She's not been asking for it or anything like that. So when we went up to see my family at the weekend, they were asking about the D word. We're like, don't mention the D word, just in case. But no, she's all right. She's gone really, really well, to be fair, bless it. So yeah, that's gone well.
I mean, that's really positive.
Yeah, 100%. Like
a really positive week.
Yeah, so she had her second dentist appointment. That was on Monday just gone. So the first time around she wouldn't open her mouth, which I think is quite important for a dentist appointment. But she was a bit more like, she opened her mouth but wouldn't lift her head up, so it was still a bit awkward. But she's got like a clean bill of health from the dentist, which is really, really good. He mentioned that she's still got like the overbite and underbite, but that's going to fix itself now she's off a dummy. So that was the main reason why we did it. So yeah, we had a dentist trip on Monday, and then this week's just been on half term, so we've been out on the van, had a little bit of a woodland walk looking for the Gruffalo, which we've put on our Instagram stories this week. So yeah, it's been really, really busy. How about your household? So what updates have you got this week? Anything new that you've got to report on your daughter?
So I've got a few things actually. So we're trying a new feeding routine where we're going from, she was having 4 bottles a day, as well as some food as well. And now we're going down to 3 bottles a day that have got slightly more in them.
Right.
And trying to give her more solids. So we're on that transition where we're going through from trying to give her more solid food and a bit less milk, which is going well so far. She's trying a lot of things. And I mean, she has been trying things for a while, but we're exposing her to a lot more now.
Yeah. So
it's been interesting to see which bits she likes and which bits she doesn't like. But something she's got into this week, which is fun, is she'll decide that she's had enough of something or she doesn't like it, and then she'll pick it up off a little tray on a high chair. She'll wait till you're looking at her. Then she'll hold it out and drop it on the floor.
Yeah,
which is really good.
Well, we when we went through the transition onto the solids, we stupidly did it in the kitchen in front of a white wall, and there's still the marks there where she's
nice.
like, "I have finished." Whack, straight up the wall. Like on the Thor film where like he's bring me another one and smashes it on the floor. It's a bit like that. So yeah, I definitely feel your pain. So when you're feeding your daughter, did you track the feeds? Did you use any apps or anything like that to track the feeding?
No, not really, because we've been trying to give her a bit of what we've been having most of the time.
Right.
So we've not really tracked it as such. We've tried to expose her to a lot of different things.
Right.
Especially like the allergen foods and things like that, because my partner's got a few like allergies with food. Right. So there's certain things that we need to try her on to make sure she's okay with it. Yeah. And obviously we want to do that when we're both here. So if there is anything that goes a little bit awry, then we can nip her to the doctor or the hospital. But no, she's been absolutely fine with all the allergen foods. That's been really useful.
So is that something that the doctor might have recommended to you because of the lactose as well and your wife's medical history? Did you think that it might be something that might have flow through to your daughter, and that there could be issues with the solid foods, or is that just your decision just to kind of slowly get her into feeding the solids?
I think part of it is us just thinking, well, actually, my partner's got a food intolerance, so we need to check her out on different things and make sure she's not intolerant. But we know that she's obviously got this lactose intolerance, so that can sometimes come alongside other intolerances as well.
Right.
I mean, we've tried her on most things that you would be able to have an intolerance to, and we've been good so far, so that's been useful.
I suppose,
but yeah, we've not used an app for tracking like you mentioned.
Yeah,
I mean, did you?
Yeah,
use
we used one. I think it was called Huckleberry.
Yeah.
So we'd always track even from like when we were back in the formula days. We'd track that, and I think do we do the sleep pattern on that as well? I'm sure we did sleep as well on that one. But yeah, we were quite religious with how we were tracking it, and as you said, like increasing the amount that you were feeding. So yeah, that Huckleberry really, I think it was maybe a paid for one. I'm sure we might have paid for it, but it's definitely like a really useful service. So again, another app that we recommend is that Huckleberry, I think it was called. Really good for tracking feeds, sleeps, and things like that. So you could keep on top of it. You know how much you fed last time and things like that, because you don't want to overfeed, I suppose. But yeah, that's a really useful app. So
I'll have a look at that this week, because it might be useful for me, having never used it. Yeah. I could give it a bit of a trial.
Yeah, I don't know how useful it is with when you move on to the solids. It might still be exactly the same, but really, really useful. So just going back on your obviously with your daughter's food intolerance. Now, if there's like allergic reaction, I'm sure they like to skin and things like that. Don't they have like patches and like they might apply a cream to a certain area for like sun creams and stuff to see if anything's come up? I suppose with feeding, it must be you don't really know until obviously they've sampled it and actually fed it, which could be quite dangerous. Is that right, or have I kind of made that up?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, I suppose with foods, I'm not a doctor or anything, but with foods, it is literally a case of letting them try a very small amount, see how they get on with it, and then increasing the amount that you give to them. Yeah. But you wouldn't like say it was you were doing a nut allergy and you were trying them on some like smooth peanut butter. You wouldn't like give them an entire dessert spoon of peanut butter to start off with. You just put a little bit on their lips.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they're going to have a reaction, then you only want it to be a small reaction.
Small one,
but you've got to do it to make sure that they're going to be okay with things.
Yeah.
Because obviously you need to know. It's one of those things where you've got to find out early on.
Yeah.
And then you can either avoid those things, or like with a lactose intolerance, you can follow the milk ladder when they get to the right age to start reintroducing lactose into the diet.
So is that something that can be not necessarily cured? But so what's that? What's it called? Sorry, the milk ladder.
So there's something called a milk ladder, which is about slowly reintroducing lactose back into the diet.
Right.
Obviously, if it's an allergy, then that's a bit different. But if it's an intolerance, then it does mean that you can potentially have a certain amount of lactose and still be okay.
Okay.
But part of the milk ladder is kind of discovering whether they are going to be okay with it or not.
Right.
Which is why it's quite a slow, gradual process.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of children, when they get to 1, I think it is, can start having cow's milk, can't they?
Right, yeah.
Well, with the milk ladder, it wouldn't recommend going straight for something like cow's milk, and it'd tell you to sort of go for other milks to start off with.
Right.
And then do the lactose element of it in a more slow, controlled manner.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
It's like an experiment.
But you can find it online. Yeah, you can find it online if you want to find out more about the milk ladder. You can I've just put it in a search engine.
Yeah, I didn't realise that was a thing. I always thought that if you've got that lactose intolerance, that's it then really for the rest of your life, which must be really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's just you do. There's milk in just about everything. I think an intolerance is slightly different to an allergy. So an intolerance means that you won't have as severe a reaction. And it won't be necessarily a life-threatening reaction, whereas an allergy, it can potentially be more life-threatening.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So
got to be careful.
Yeah. It's that first thing, as I say, because we were talking about it last time, weren't we, on the pod, where we were back home now, and you kind of not necessarily left on your own devices. We were talking about that support that was still there, but it's frightening because it's something is, obviously as being adults and things like that. Even if you've got pets, it's just feeding them, and you kind of just whatever they like really. But at that age, it's whether it's could potentially be quite dangerous.
Yeah, because they're new to all of the foods that you're giving to them. So everything that you're trying is something that's new and something that's different.
Yeah.
And you can have allergies and intolerances to all sorts of different foods. It's crazy. It's not just the sorts of things that you'd see in bold on the back of a packet. You can even have like allergies and intolerances to like the seeds in strawberries and things like that. Yeah. So there's loads of foods that you can have a reaction to.
Well, our daughter, she didn't have any intolerances really. The only thing that she would have a reaction to was when she'd have like fresh tomatoes, and her lips would go. Does sound a bit odd. It could just be the tomatoes, but her lips would go a little bit red. Fairly certain it wasn't tomatoes. But then if she has tomato ketchup, that's absolutely fine. So I think that's something she may have grown out of, and it was absolutely fine if they were cooked. But it's the fresh ones that used to send her lips a little bit red. But we're like, as I say, really do count our blessings that she the food wise, other than just being maybe a bit fussy every now and again, there isn't anything that could be like potentially dangerous that she's like allergic to or anything like that. So it has made our life a hell of a lot easier, and hopefully that'll be the same come May when baby number 2 arrives. But then listening to your advice and things like that would help me, which is I suppose that's what we're here for really, just trying to offer our little bit of advice where we can.
Yeah, I mean, chatting it through is always helpful, isn't it? Because I suppose everybody's experience is very different.
Yeah.
And it's comparing those experiences and learning from them, even though yours might be completely different, and it might, like what we're saying some of the time, might be completely irrelevant to you. But at the same time, it's worth knowing about quite a lot of this stuff, because if it is similar, then it makes things a bit easier, doesn't it?
So in the last pod, then we were fully immersed within the fathering journey, and on the road now to being a parent, and we were now at a position where we are looking at the end of our paternity. So do you want to sort of talk us through that? So is it the 2 weeks that you got from your job? And what was that like, sort of the transition from obviously being home all the time to obviously having to go to work? So how did that kind of dynamic change as you with the regular routine that you would have had?
I think that was quite hard. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you had it different, didn't you? Because it was lockdown. Exactly, yeah. So your transition was definitely different to mine. But I think that was probably one of the hardest parts of it. Not the transition, but it wasn't necessarily the going back to work that was the hard bit of it, and having the two things going on at the same time. It was more the leaving your amazing daughter at home.
Yeah.
And having to go to work every day and spend ages away to then come back. Like the coming back bit was amazing, because then you got to do that bit where you came in, you got to see them again.
Yeah.
But also the leaving your partner, because both of our partners obviously went through a C-section, leaving them knowing full well that after 2 weeks you've not fully recovered.
No way.
And you're just worried about them a little bit, because you're thinking, well, if they've got to do anything where they've got to lift or move things during the day, then that's obviously something that they shouldn't be doing. So,
what was your commute to work?
I suppose it's a little bit scary.
So what was your commute to work like?
So it's only 20 minutes for me, so it's not too bad. And I suppose if I was needed to come home for anything, 20 minutes isn't that bad a journey. But that depends on the traffic, because I have to drive potentially through a city. Right. So, normally it's 20 minutes, but it can be different. Yeah. But I think it was hard, but not hard because of having a different routine. Hard because of knowing what you were leaving and just wanting to get back all the time and spend more time together. Yeah, it's just a shame that you don't get more time in the jobs that we're in.
Well, exactly, yeah. So did you? It sounds like an odd question, but were you surprised with how well you were able to cope with not only obviously the lack of sleep and things like that, but obviously if you were, the advice they give is obviously when your child sleeps, you have a sleep as well, but obviously you can't really do that when you're back to work. So did you feel like the transition, did you manage quite well with the lack of energy, the lack of sleep, or was that again another hurdle you had to get over?
For me personally, we were quite lucky. Our little girl did pretty much sleep through the night quite well to start off with, so that made things definitely easier.
Yeah. I bet there's parents.
My partner would.
I bet there's parents who are listening to us now thinking, "You smug git." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Same with our kid. Really, she was a great sleeper, and you do feel like, I think if I'd had no sleep and a parent had gone, "Oh my God, our Angel is such a good sleeper," I'd be like, "I'm going to punch you in the face. I haven't slept for a month. I've forgotten what my own daughter's name is. I can see sound." It's like those sorts of things. So do you think that people will be like, "You absolute smuggin'"?
Yeah, I think. See, we're going through a bit more sleep deprivation at the moment because of teething than we went through when she was initially born. Right. And it was a big help that straight after that paternity leave, she was sleeping quite well through the night. She'd wake up for one feed during the night, but my partner would do that feed. Right. So I'd do the late feed. She'd then do the one in the middle of the night so that I could sleep a bit more. Okay. I mean, you would get disturbed by them getting up a little bit, but at least you knew you could have a bit of a sleep afterwards. Yeah. And yeah, it worked quite well, I suppose, because we worked out that that's how we were going to do the feeding routine. Yeah. And when she was asleep, she was asleep. Right. She wasn't that fussy with things. So I know we were lucky. And I'm sorry to anybody who's not experiencing that. Yeah. But yeah, that's how it was. I mean, how was it for you, that sort of that change of routine going from your paternity? I know you were in lockdown, so it would have been very different for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So my
how did it work?
Yeah. So my commute to work was from the bedroom to the lounge or living room.
Bit quicker.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's fairly obvious at this point to say that we're both teachers. So we were. As I said already, that we were quite lucky with the way that our the birth worked. So after the 2-week paternity, we were into the Christmas break anyway, and then we were teaching 100% online from that first week in January. So yeah, it was. We had again a little bit easier. I know lockdown wasn't very nice for being able to meet people, but it just made us looking after our daughter so much easier because I was home basically. Now we only had like a really small flat, so it was difficult for me I didn't have my own office space or anything like that. So it's not like I could take myself away, and I wouldn't have expected my wife to be in the bedroom all day. So we did have that sort of the ability for her to kind of walk around, and she even allowed for my daughter to sit on some of the Zoom chats with some of the kids, like obviously. So it's a bit easier because I teach at college, so they're obviously a little bit older, so they understand what's going on and they can be a bit more independent. So our lessons were 3 hours in length, and the way that we teach it is the first part of the lesson is a little bit of content, and the rest of the session is essentially them completing their coursework. So whilst we're doing that,
so without trying to drop you in it, then did it mean that you could actually probably spend more time with your little girl and your wife during that time period, even though you were still working?
Yeah, so if actually during the lesson I'd still be on the call, I'd still have my headphones on, I'd have my gaming headset on, I'd still have that, but I could just be like, I'm just going to pop off, just to check on my daughter and things like that. But then when I did have a lesson free, so the best part about what I do and the way I teach is that we're able to kind of do our marking sometimes whilst we're teaching. So especially if the lessons are 3 hours in length, I could do there's a lot of marking, don't get me wrong, but we were able to do it within like that lesson, which means that if I don't have a teaching session, I was then free for 3 hours. So then I could muck in, have my own lunch and things like that, look after my wife, make sure she's fed, and then get to play a little bit with my daughter as well, which is really, really nice. And then this lasted for ages. So I was speaking to some colleagues today, and I couldn't really remember when it was when we went back into college for the like face-to-face. I think it was March, perhaps a little bit sooner, but it was definitely sort of that 1.5, possibly 2 months that we were on top of my maternity, my paternity. So yeah, it was that kind of transition was kind of a little bit like your daughter's feeding, actually, where like I'm kind of drip fed back into work. It's like a phased return to work, really. But yeah, definitely when when we were back in, I know the commute was only it was literally 10-12 minutes into college, but that kind of that first time you're going away is really, really difficult. It's a lot easier now. She's so our daughter's 3, so she's actually in nursery, so she's part of the routine as well. We'll drop her off. She's getting a lot better at being dropped off at the nursery. But as you were mentioning, it's really nice coming back, and I think that actually goes up more when they're a little bit older, so she can now she'll run into the living room to welcome me and like, Daddy's home, which obviously you're not going to get as from a 1-year-old as much. Obviously recognise you back and can be quite happy, but it is lovely having her almost taking you out like a rugby tackle and having that kind of welcome back. But yeah, that transition when you're going into work for the first time, you there's a little bit of sleep deprivation, but you've at the end of the day we have to still do our jobs at a quality level as well, so we have to kind of maintain that professionalism.
So something that we've talked about before as well is the length of a paternity leave. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how did you feel? Like, because obviously you could be there for your partner, and it meant that if she did have any sort of thing that she had to pick up and move and stuff, because they recommend a 6-week recovery, don't they, roughly, for a C-section? Yeah. And so you were around for that period of time, whereas for me, I wasn't. Yeah. We did have a few family members that came down to stay with us to help out just during that time, especially straight after I was back at work. Right. But I mean, how did you find that? Did you find that your partner had to call on you a lot, or did you think, or not so much whilst you were working and things like that? Not
really. I'm sure it would have been, but because it would have been sort of a good 4 weeks after the birth by the time I was actually back in teacher mode, really, even though it was just from our front room. So she was obviously a little bit further along the recovery, but there were still moments where she might not necessarily been able to get up or what have you. So I could just say I'll be back in a minute, like, and just turn my camera off or whatever, and go do a little bit, just and then come back. So yeah, I could definitely help out, and I'm sure that my wife was kind of, I'm not going to say grateful then, as if I'm doing her a service, but it's my job. But yeah, I'm sure it helped. I'm sure it helped out everybody else. But just basically having an extra pair of hands around the house. Even though I'm fairly useless with my left hand, as we mentioned before, but I'm sure like just doing the basic things like that your wife would have gone through as well, just like being able to sit up properly or whatever, or being able to reach something if she's holding your daughter. So yeah, I think so. I've said it already. I think this is going to be more complicated because I've managed to get 2 weeks because I'm actually swapping jobs between now and when my second one comes. So we weren't 100% convinced I'd get the 2 weeks, but they've been really, really nice and giving me the 2-week paternity. So I'm there for about 3 or 4 weeks and I'm off for 2 weeks. So here's my child.
Yeah, that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be different. I am still really, really close. My commute to work at the moment is 45 minutes, but with the change in jobs, I could literally walk in 10-15 minutes. So that's going to be really useful. I can just kind of come back if there's any problems. But yeah, I know this is going to be a hell of a lot hard, and I know what you and your wife went through. I'm sure it's going to be pretty similar with us as well. So yeah, it's all not daunting so much. I know it's just something that we have to go through, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose for you it'll just be a different process this time round.
Yeah.
So you've had one experience that lots of other people will have had a similar experience, won't they, with having children during lockdown?
Yeah, there's definitely when she goes to school and they're about, I'm probably expecting a conversation when she's about 15, 16 and she's doing history. and they talk about the lockdown and things like that, and she starts like doing the maths and then realising that she's obviously a lockdown baby, and the main reason that she might have been produced in the first instance is because lockdown happened and we were sick of Joe Wicks. So don't tell you off. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I suppose, well, I'm sure as we go forward with these podcasts, we might talk a little bit about lockdown babies in general, because that's quite an interesting topic.
Yeah.
As you've just mentioned, that we're both teachers, and I teach much younger children.
Yeah.
So I've seen some of those lockdown babies come through school already.
Yeah.
It's some interesting differences with those children because of things like not experiencing seeing people's faces and reading expressions and things like that from a young age.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's something we'll come back to in a future episode at some point.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, actually. So we've had a bit of a step back in progression today, where we were talking about it before we were on the pod, actually, that she'd done this is my daughter, she'd done a wee in the carpet. Like 3 of them, just odd. I don't know what, like, she hasn't done this for a long time. So she was obviously like, she'd wet herself, and then we'd actually declothed her. There's no point in kind of clothing her again because she was about to go in the bathroom. She did it twice more. But then obviously you were saying about not being able to read facial cues. She just turned to me and went, "Mummy's angry face is on." I was like, "Well, why is that?" She went, "Because I done a wee on the carpet." I was like, "Well, yeah, I've done that before." Cheers. I have. It's another story for another day. But yeah, it's something she's not a big fan of if any of us around the house pees on the carpet. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Even at college age, we find that, you know, the 2 years that they had disrupted their education is definitely being felt now. We were thinking that it might change a little bit because they're starting to have examinations again, but I think this is something that's going to continue for a while. Yeah, this kind of impact that lockdown's had it at some point over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, was it, you know, while it's happened. So yeah, it's definitely going to be something, and I think it is a really interesting conversation to have, because I've got 2 children that were lockdown children, I think, in my family, and then I've got one who was just outside of it beforehand. So we can not necessarily compare and contrast, but we can see those sort of differences between them.
Yeah, I mean, I see lockdown children daily, because I work in infant school. So they're coming through infant schools at the moment. And it is a topic that is written about a lot. But it's something that doesn't necessarily have a massive impact on all children. It's just some. Yeah. So it's something that was strange for them, but they don't know it was strange.
No.
If you see what I mean. Because, yeah.
There's that phrase, the new norm, wasn't it? I think that was something that was bandied about, which has since been forgotten about again. So we're back to the old norm, I suppose.
Yeah, I liked the old norm.
Yeah, I don't like
the old
change.
Norm was good.
So, another thing that we were thinking about discussing is we've mentioned it a little bit, but how you can support we touched on it a little bit, but that kind of helping your partners through the recovery period, especially for mothers who have had that C-section. So, what advice would you have to fathers around the assistance of helping that partner through that recovery period?
I mean, for me, my partner knew full well it was going to be a hard recovery, and she was ready for that. So she knew it was going to take a while, and she'd researched it quite a bit as well, I think. So she was ready for what was coming. But at the same time, I think it's hard to know when you're overdoing things. I think you can have good days and then feel really good about it, and then go, right, I can do a bit more today. Yeah. And then push yourself a little bit more. And I think anybody that's had major surgery would probably agree in the same way. Like a few years back, it's probably about 4 years ago now, I had to have spinal surgery. Right. And my recovery from that was quite gradual. And to start off with, I wasn't really walking very much, and I did have a few days where I felt like things were feeling a lot better. Mm-hmm. So I would try and walk a bit more, or try and walk up a hill rather than on something flat. Yeah. And sometimes I got that wrong, and it puts you back a little bit. Yeah. So me and my partner, it was probably 4 weeks out after the birth, we went for a bit of a walk at a country park that's near to where we live. And we didn't walk far, and we stuck on the paths, and the paths weren't up and down, they were all quite flat. And she was having a really good day, and she just wanted to have a bit of a walk, get some fresh air, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And we got back, and she was like, I think I've pushed myself a little bit too much. But it's really hard to judge that as well. So I think it's just supporting them when they need the support, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many women out there that would go through a C-section and then go, right, I feel rubbish today, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a run.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's that thing of they know how far to push themselves, but if you have pushed yourself a little bit too far, just talk about it. And then obviously we can pick the slack up, can't we?
Yeah. Was it a fatigue thing that was with your wife, like after the walk, or was it the still the scar tissue that was there? So what was it? It was causing
it was more the scar tissue. Yeah. It was more the scar tissue than fatigue. I think. I mean, she's not an unfit person. She can exercise quite well, and she's fit and healthy.
Right.
So it was that thing of, it was more the recovery from the wound that was across her, than anything else. Because when you're walking, you are using quite a lot of muscles in your stomach. Just standing up, you're using quite a lot of muscles in your stomach.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of, if you've only done it around your house for quite a while, and then you go for a bit of a longer walk, you're keeping yourself upright more, you're twisting your torso a little bit more. So it does make a bit of a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. I've definitely remember Mama kind of having the same sort of issue. Just being able to sit up, especially like when you're like with the child as well, trying to get into those comfortable positions. But you have to kind of help, because it's not just the pain, but obviously there's no muscle strength there because it's all been kind of cut to pieces. So it took a long time, and even now, so 3 years. It's 3 years since our daughter was born. And there's numbness. I don't know if your wife has the same, but there's numbness around the scar, and that could be permanent, or it obviously could take a long time for that to get back together again. And then obviously we're doing the same process for baby number 2, because we've got it's like a Ziploc bag, just unzip it and it goes through again.
Nice.
So it's again we've said this a lot that that any kind of birth process that the mother goes through is horrendous, but I think the C-section, it's such a long kind of process, and obviously they've still got the child to look after as well. I'm not sure, like, obviously I've not had any major surgery, but I'm sure having your spinal surgery and then having a child to look at the same time would have been fairly difficult if you can't get up to be able to then feed and things like that.
And it's about the way that you carry a weight around as well. Because obviously, I mean, the other side of it is, like, they're not only recovering from a major surgery, your body is changing again because it's going from having a child inside to not having a child inside.
Right.
And that's quite a major change as well. So there's a lot going on there. It's not just the fact that you've had major surgery. And I say just the fact, obviously major surgery is a big thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening all at the same time. And simple things that were easy to do before are things that are not as easy to do now.
No.
Things like going to make a brew but the kettle's full. That puts quite a lot of pressure on your stomach when you're trying to lift a weight like that. So, I think it's just being very aware and listening to the advice that they give you about recovery when you're leaving the hospital.
Yeah.
Some hospitals sends physios around to chat to you about it as well, which is really good. But there's also a lot of information online. There's a lot of people on YouTube that are posting videos about the best ways to recover, and a bit further down the line as well, things like massage as well,
right?
Massaging the scar and the scar tissue and things like that to soften it up and make it supple again. But obviously you can't do that too early, because the muscle needs to knit back together, and everything needs to be okay before you start doing something like that. I know that when the health visitors came round, they were checking checking my partner's scar each time to make sure it looked okay.
Yeah.
And obviously when we were in the hospital, in that recovery period in the hospital, there was a lot of checkups to make sure that was all okay.
Yeah.
And just making sure that it was healing up nicely, really.
So did your wife have any sort of, you mentioned like the physio pop round, did she have anything, or was she just given a load of exercises to do sort of to strengthen everything?
I think, well, if what I remember right, the physio popped round to us when we were in hospital, and they had a bit of a chat, but they gave you like a sheet of paper with some recommended exercises on, but said don't do them too early. Right. Wait until you're
ready. Sort of.
Well, I say recovered. Recovered's not really the right word, is it? Ready is probably the better way of putting it. And yeah, there was a piece of paper with some exercises on that you could do. But at the same time, if that was me, having a piece of paper with exercises on isn't very helpful, even if someone's described how to do them to me, especially just after you've been chopped open and a baby's been pulled out. So, I mean, my recommendation would be for people that want to investigate how to sort of recover a bit quicker and things, is YouTube videos of people showing you what to do.
Yeah.
Because then you can see the movements, they can talk more about correct posture and things like that, because that's obviously going to be very important. And you don't really want to injure yourself straight after you've had a baby. So
I could do with doing that. If my wife goes through the same process and watches, I could do some of those YouTube videos as well, because my back's all over the place. But I can't. This isn't a place for me to moan because, other than having a bit too much to eat, I think my insides are fairly regular. So to speak. Nice.
Yeah. Everybody wanting to hear that you are fairly regular. Yeah. Love it.
Like a Kennedy funeral. So we've discussed the kind of the transition back from the paternity back to your full working life, and we've also had a chat about the way that you can support your partner through that period. So when we were talking in the trailer, we made a bit of a point to try and have a discussion about women that we think our daughters might be inspired by, trying to show that the strong women that are in the world, that have achieve amazing things. And we've been at this point we wanted to try and get the podcast in flowing and getting the right kind of structure to it. But I think this is something that we can start on from today. So do you have anyone in particular that you think that would be a great inspiration to your daughter and someone that they could look up to?
Well, I know we've talked about this, and it's something we've been chatting about. We've banded a few names around, haven't we?
Yeah.
Of people that might be a bit famous that are doing amazing things and stuff. But we kind of settled on the idea that we'd talk about our partners as inspiration for our little girls. Yeah. Because, to be fair, they need somebody to look up to. And if you look at the connection between any child and their mother, it's always amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those bonds that loads of people are jealous of.
Yeah.
It's something it just naturally grows really well. And I know my partner has been through a lot to get pregnant and get to the point where we had our little girl. And it's been hard for her to get to that point and carry a baby, and it's just not easy, is it?
No.
It's you see them struggling every day, which is hard for you to do as well, and you try to do as much as you can to help. But I mean, as far as inspiration goes, she was in hospital quite a lot during the pregnancy, and she just kept going and going and going, and she got to the end point, and we got our little girl, and then there's the recovery, and then there's everything that comes after that. So it's just such a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think anybody that's been through that should be looked up to, really.
Well, definitely.
So yeah, it's a big thing. So I mean, for me, I know I'd like our little girl as her number one sort of person to look up to be her mum.
Yeah.
Without doubt. I mean, what did you want to say about your inspirational partner?
Yeah, I echo those exactly the same. It's actually our wedding anniversary on Monday. It's 4 years already.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's following that day we go back to work, which is always fun, so we might celebrate it this weekend. But yeah, 100%. Like, it's not just the physical changes, the mental changes as well, and it is I think because this time around, obviously my wife's in work full time, so she wasn't working at the time we had our first daughter, so she's working full time hours. Again, she works as a teacher as well, so it's long hours and it's hard, and you can't, with me a little bit, it's a little. She's going to laugh now, but college teaching is probably a little bit easier than primary, because you're constantly having to get up. You can't just kind of sit and rest. You have to be everywhere. And the classroom's so big as well in relation to the number of students that are in that classroom. So she's always working really, really hard. There may be complicated situations with some of the students that are in there. And she just does it like she's almost doing it. And putting herself kind of second, so not even at a third. Obviously, the unborn, the child comes first, then her students, and then it's her. So she's always putting herself after everybody else. She's it's exhausting. It's mentally tiring, because obviously her immune system's kind of getting battered at the moment. She's constantly ill as well, so she's fighting off bugs and viruses, which supposedly is supposed to be a good thing. I suppose obviously not saying that to her when she's really, really poorly, turning around and going, it's a good thing, it's good. It means that your white blood cells are doing the thing, and if you didn't have those, then the viruses would attack the baby, I think is what, because that's the cells find that strain that's in there. So
it is really quite common, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
When people are pregnant, for that to happen.
So still being able to do that whilst also looking after a 3-year-old and a 38-year-old child, it's unbelievable. She's definitely the strongest person I know. My own mother as well is in that as well. She's amazing. But yeah, my wife's like the strongest person I know. She just gets on with it. She doesn't want to put anybody out, like, or feel like she's causing a fuss. I'm like, you should be causing a fuss. That's what everybody else is there for. You're going through a huge thing and you're doing an amazing job. So yeah, I can't be more proud of her, to be honest with her. I think she's amazing. Ah,
yeah. I mean, yeah. How nice. But no, it's true though, isn't it? I mean, you're with this person that gives up a lot to be able to have a baby as well.
Yeah, that's exactly
not just
the right
a case
line,
of yeah.
It's the sacrifice you have to go through.
It's not easy.
No.
Yeah, it's just not easy at all. But they just power through, and it's that ability to, no matter what's thrown at you, just power through and have that end goal in sight. And it might be hard, and it might be at times upsetting and mentally very draining. Yeah. But yeah, you just see them every day getting through something that's a challenge. Yeah, those daily challenges are always
so this goes
hard work, aren't they?
So it goes out to obviously our partners, but also all the mothers that are out there. So an absolute inspiration. So I think that's about it for episode 4. I think episode 3 was quite a long one, so we've kept it to around 45 minutes. So we've discussed all those kind of the key points in relation to what it was like going from being the full-time kind of parent at home to then having to combine your professional life with your personal home life as well, and how those changes went through. And I think the most important thing as well, Dean, is how you able to keep yourself sane and keep yourself kind of as level-headed as possible.
Yeah, and that working as a team, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, isn't it?
It's a constant bit of teamwork to just keep powering through and supporting your partner and doing what you need to do to give your little person everything they need.
Yeah. And we've also been able to get around to those inspiring people that we've we felt our daughters can look up to, and when we've decided that both our respective partners are someone that they should be looking to get up for. If I've got a bit odd this, but if I have a daughter that goes up to be like my wife, then I think we're doing something really, really well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think anybody should want their mother to be an inspiration to them.
Yeah,
I think that's just a big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we can. I think it's about signing off now. Dean, do you want to sign us off this week?
I can do some signing off.
Cool.
I hope you've all had a lovely time listening to us. Don't forget to check out our socials. Head over to our Instagram, which is In the Doll's House Pod, and check it out. We'll be posting on there regularly. Keep listening. Join us next week, grab your brew and get ready for it, where we'll see you next time in the Doll's House.